Anglo actually has a lot in the country that it owes the country. The people who have been working on the mines, the reparations that certainly will have to come to the table based on the UN charters and everything.
Are you saying that their departure is almost like running away from exercising that responsibility of reparations? Because one could argue that their departure would not, from a point of international law, for example, would not get them to be off the hook. Being in Canada, they're not in the universe. They're just across the ocean, and they can still be sued and be made to pay whatever they're supposed to pay.
Well, it's possible. Yeah. But you need to be resident here. You don't need to be changing names and probably going bankrupt and recreating yourselves differently because you are avoiding accountability. In the world of money, everything is possible, and Anglo is not immune from doing so, having been irresponsible. Undertaken irresponsible mining where people died, many of them died. You can see a number of orphans in Lesotho, in Zambia, people suffering from tuberculosis and all forms of diseases, including HIV and AIDS. Because part of the problem with HIV and AIDS was inspired and polarized by migration. And so there's a whole lot of social responsibility that has to worry Anglo.
But if they argued that they would be bankrupt if they do not rival and merge, right, with this tech company, right? What would it help them if they were bankrupt, if they can't then do all those things that you're talking about? I mean, I'm trying to understand why they would, in the face of all the things that you are saying, decide that it's better to be domiciled in Canada.
Well, we have to see the documents, we have to see the papers, but certainly if one leaves South Africa and in South Africa, in another country, it means that you are seeing greener pastures there than here in South Africa. I'm saying there's a lot in South Africa that South Africa offers, particularly a company that has been here for 130 years. What company is a South African company that we can show to the world, if not Anglo?
You don't think they learn any lessons from what happened with Old Musho?
Well, when capital does the way it does, there's a lot of racial undertones that are at play. We don't have a black economic class of the likes of Dangote who can say, this is what I'm doing and I'm facing the world. Dangote decided to face the world with his, what is that thing that he did with the oil refiner?
Yes.
And the world tried to frustrate him, including the Nigerian government tried to frustrate him. Now, everybody has fallen in line, and Dangote is the biggest refiner in the world. If you don't have indigenous capital, there will always be these kinds of games that Anglo is playing in front of us.
How do you link this to the whole issue of black economic empowerment? If you link it to this disinvestment, is this not what the World Bank was warning against, in as far as the black economic empowerment policies are concerned? That we may begin to see disinvestment, we may begin to see poor direct foreign investment.
No. I think the World Bank is wrong. I mean, the World Bank is reading every other sign around South Africa. For instance, they are saying that the economy should deconcentrate. It's a possible suggestion, but the economy is concentrated for reasons that the whites dominated the economy. That's the reason that, and now the policy structures that have to deconcentrate the economy are not the ones that they are saying should be in place. They're just saying, well, you should increase the informal sector. You can't, because the concentration is structural. So the marginal suggestions that they're making are misguided. They are not interrogating the fundamentals of concentration. That South Africa is a monopoly country, white monopoly country, that favors whites, that has been concentrated in that kind of way. That is why Anglo can decide one day that it wants to leave. And there isn't any way in which the government or anyone can dissuade it.
Can stop them.
Yes, including when 7% of the contribution is from government employees. So there is a fundamental neoliberal system at play. That fundamentally has not changed. So to imagine that at the margins you can encourage an informal sector, you can't. Because the strictures that govern an informal sector have to organically grow on people of your same race. That is what Dangote will achieve. Here in South Africa, that's not what we will achieve. Because the BE has to confront a white culture, a white ownership that is not ready to do what we are thinking we can do. So until we have this indigenous capital of blacks, this thing's not going to happen.
But surely BE by now, after 21 years of its promulgation, should have taken us some step, some way towards establishing that indigenous capital. Why do you think that hasn't quite translated into that after 21 years? Because that's really the big debate that we've got now, where people are saying this thing has failed, it must now be set aside, and we should try and come up with another concoction of some economic policy like what the DA tried to do a couple of weeks ago.
Well, let's look at Old Mutual. And then think about the Afrikaner. The Afrikaner didn't say Old Mutual permit me. The Afrikaner built Sangha. The Afrikaner built all the Foscas. The African tried to build a bank called VBS, but the Africans came and destroyed it. That was the single most critical indigenous system that understood how the African functions. And the African builds these things around their culture. We, in VBS, tried to build this in our culture, whereby it was a cultural economic geography that drove VBS, and we came and destroyed it. Itala is on the
verge, the same thing, yeah.
So until we understand that, and until we understand that for used the same VBS system to have this big bank, we have not understood what this cultural economic geography means. What neoliberal systems do, they destroy first your culture and then infiltrate you throughout. So what you see here in terms of BE is we think that we are following what Mazzucato talks about when she talks about entrepreneurial state. Mazzucato says, do not do as what the Americans say they did, or say they did. You must do what the Americans did. The Americans used an entrepreneurial state as a model for their development. Capitalist as they are. The Chinese used what Mazzucato interpreted, the Chinese state. Here in South Africa, we talk Mazzucato entrepreneurial state, but we are far from that. Completely off. So even the B20 now, and in the context of the G20, it's about, can we export our minerals? What are the kinds of things that we can we can give to BE? So when a moment of fundamental,
they're not talking about issues such as proper use of those minerals or proper beneficiation of those minerals. Are you saying that even in the context of the B20, that convention is still not taken root?
Well, you have to look at how we behaved when we talked about energy. You see, you should read Bakwati. Bakwati talks about meterizing growth, and it's about terms of trade. When you think about the terms of trade and think about the period of load shedding, when we went and bought this pens on the rooftops, draining of foreign exchange in favor of rooftops, closing Komati where the coal is here. It's an economic tragedy. It's an economic sabotage. And you ask, who is the economist in government sitting and looking at these things? Because at that point,
who is he? I mean, you know.
No, I don't know.
You're a Assistant General for 17 years.
But the president,
you should know something.
What the president has done is this. He's brought presidency and treasury. So he's brought the power of the money and the power of the president. And planning has always been hollowed. It's never existed. And without that stomach that plans, things will go wrong. Absolutely wrong. And they are going wrong. I don't know.
But there's a planning commission?
No, the planning commission doesn't do anything. Let's not even talk about that. There's no planning ministry. Have you ever seen a government plan?
Well, what should we call the National Development Plan? It's been around since 2012. It's got some targets that maybe should be keeping some of the
Let me show you the targets. You can bring the screen up. Because I think we are at the point where we should do that. Then you will know. I mean, look, this was at the height of COVID here. And the government plan had nothing to show. Absolutely nothing. They had employment addition, they said EPWP. The National Treasury had nothing. Of course, civil society, we didn't expect much. So was the ANC. But then Business for South Africa came to government. And I want to emphasize this point. Business for South Africa came to government in October 2020. And said, government, let's work together. If we work together, the economy will grow at 5.2%. If we work together, there will be employment of 6 to 8 million jobs. 15% unemployment. Inequality Gini coefficient 0.43. And debt to GDP ratio of 6.62. So by 2030, we will reach these targets. Government, because it was hollow, it didn't have anybody to digest what business was coming with. It couldn't allow business in. They snapped them. And business decided to go. But then government crisis precipitated. And then government started.
And this was the time of Tito Mboweni, who had been brought from the private sector to come in and solve for exactly what you are saying.
He had that 20, give the slide. He had created that 2019 document. That 2019 document said 1 million jobs by 2030. The question was how many jobs per year? He had a 2.3% growth. He never went there. He had no plan whatsoever on the table. Business had targets, but he didn't have a plan. But the targets were great because they would have brought society together. What we needed was then the path. Let me talk about implemented scenarios. The implemented scenarios, we had worked on a plan, looked at the situation, and we said, if we work on the implemented scenarios quantified and projected forward, there will be 6.2% growth, 8 to 10 million jobs, 12%.
By when? By 2030?
Yes. I mean, the first year in 2020 showing the results. 23% poverty rate, 0.55 Gini coefficient, 48 to 3% debt to GDP ratio. What the president needed to do was to take Business for South Africa, put them in a room at that point, and say, I see that implement to have a path. Business, I see you have targets. These targets of yours, Business for South Africa and the ADRS, are similar. They are spitting distance. Now let's go and solve. We have all the solutions.
Why didn't this happen? Why didn't that happen when it was surrounded by people who like Tito Mboweni and others who were clearly economists and who could understand what you're saying?
Well, we presented this to Tito Mboweni at the ETC, these particular targets. that business later talked to. And he said, no, I don't believe in this modeling. I'll look at the ECA. EP was there. Ibrahim Patel.
Yeah.
Kodongwana, the minister, was there. So was the late Pravin Gordhan. They were in that meeting when we were presenting this.
Yeah.
Which later business presented as targets. But we presented the pathway. Now, we have a government that has thumbs in its eyes and sticks in its ears. Can't hear, can't see. Go and find out whether they have a modeling capability which gives them foresight. They don't.
And this hasn't changed because of the introduction of other parties into government, in your view? I mean,
when business comes at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Let's look at 2002, 2007. Business was not coming to the party. President Begi took a stance and said, we'll do this, we'll do that as government. We achieved a 5% growth.
Yeah.
He led and he used the levers of power of the state to achieve that. And business should have come, but it thought this was not serious. When you bring business at the center, when you don't have a plan and you don't have a system,